You have an incredible amount of power right now. Why should we trust you? They shouldn't. With that disarming sincerity, Sam Altman set the tone. Behind the friendly chatbot is a saga of lofty ideals, power clashes, controversial decisions, and global consequences. OpenAI's rise isn't just about technology. It's the story of colliding visionaries, fireproof principles, and a race to control a tool that could change civilization. In this video, you'll discover how OpenAI was born with utopian promises and transparency, how it clashed with giants like Google, the milestones that ignited the AI revolution, and the moments when OpenAI seemed to break its own rules. We will see internal conflicts that led to a governance crisis, and what OpenAI's journey means for our work, our economies, and our future. From the origin of Sam Altman to the early alarms of Elon Musk, from the battles in the council to the explosive eruption of ChatGPT, this is the mind-boggling truth of OpenAI and where it could lead us. Origins of power, Sam Altman and the fundamentals. Before the headlines, Sam Altman was the St. Louis kid who disassembled PCs and programmed since he was a kid. At 19, he left Stanford to launch Looped, a geolocation app before check-in was a trend. He raised more than $30 million, worked tirelessly, and learned through blows that vision without execution is not enough. Looped was sold in 2012 and didn't change the world, but it put Sam on the map and brought him closer to key mentors. One of them, Paul Graham, founder of Y Combinator, blurted out a phrase that became myth. You could throw Sam on an island of cannibals and come back 5 years later to find him as the king. Soon after, Sam went from founder to investor and then to president of YC at the age of 29. From that vantage point, he looked at the entire chessboard: funding, talent, big problems to solve. His network multiplied, as did his ambition. And one idea began to obsess him: artificial intelligence. In the mid-2000s, AI was advancing at an unprecedented speed. At YC, Sam was already funding AI projects and repeated an intuition. If AI was going to define the century, it couldn't be left in the hands of a few. The conversation about AGI, an intelligence capable of learning almost any task, was gaining volume. Sam wanted it to be developed with responsibility and broad profit, not as a corporate secret. That idea would connect with another character who shared his anxiety: Elon Musk. Elon Musk and the early alarm. Long before ChatGPT, Elon Musk already warned that uncontrolled AI could become an existential risk. It wasn't just the technical power, it was who built it and with what philosophy. In 2014, Google bought DeepMind and hoarded talent with generous checks. Musk debated until the early hours of the morning with Larry Page and left worried. If someone powerful saw it as natural for machines to surpass humans, who would set limits? He also feared an arms race for talent and data. If one company gained a decisive advantage and held it, the rest of the world would be left in the dark. For Musk, a counterweight was needed. A team with resources, credibility, and a public mission. I needed someone with influence in Silicon Valley and an obsession with social impact. That someone was Sam Altman. OpenAI Foundation. Ideals and initial contradictions. In late 2015, a private dinner brought together Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Ilya Sutskever, Greg Brockman, and others. The proposal: a nonprofit research laboratory that will guide the way to a secure and shared AGI. No monopolies, open results, benefits for all. Musk would bring money and visibility. Altman, leadership and network. Brockman, organizational architecture. Sutskever, the world-class scientific brain. Profiles such as John Schulman, Wojciech Zaremba, and Andrei Karpathy joined. OpenAI was born with a promise: to be open out of conviction and seriousness. But the contradiction was there from the start. What does it mean to be open when a breakthrough may be dangerous in the wrong hands? The manifesto spoke of transparency and collaboration, and at the same time of responsibility and prudence. From day one, OpenAI walked a tightrope: open to democratize, close so as not to arm malicious actors. In its early years, the lab combined papers, open source, and ambitious projects: agents in Dota 2, robotic hands solving Rubik's cubes with a clear discourse, pursue AGI, but aligned with human values. The Transformer Revolution and the AI Boom. In 2017, a paper with an austere title, "Attention is All You Need," lit the fuse. The Transformer introduced self-attention, allowing models to read large contexts and capture large-scale patterns. Google used it internally and released models like BERT, but it was OpenAI that went all in on scaling it to generate language. Then came GPT-1 and then GPT-2, which showed an unsettling fluidity and risks. OpenAI decided not to publish the full version of GPT-2 immediately due to possible harmful uses. The world applauded the prudence or criticized it as a betrayal of the name Open. Still, the message was clear. Scaling data, parameters, and compute worked. With GPT-3 in 2020, 175 billion parameters, the sensation of a qualitative leap was general. The model wrote, programmed, debated, and played with styles. But OpenAI no longer published weights or datasets. It offered access via API. The lab was moving toward tighter control, arguing safety and sustainability. The Transformer Revolution, plus the cloud and the avalanche of data, opened the floodgates to a global race. Google and DeepMind, Meta with Llama, Anthropic with a focus on security, laboratories in China and Europe. The board was filled with players and pressure. As of 2023, the concept of RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback, and red teaming teams gained prominence. Thousands of human examples to shape safe responses, and internal and external teams trying to break the system to strengthen it. Systematic risk assessments were added, hallucinations, biases, jailbreaks, and metrics to measure improvements. Even so, each leap in capacity brought new vectors of abuse and new limits to be discovered. From open to closed, moral and business transformation. The total opening collided with two realities: the risks of abuse and the astronomical cost of training models. In 2019, OpenAI restructured. It created a limited benefit entity controlled by the nonprofit foundation. This way, it could accept investment with a capped return without completely selling the mission. For critics, it was the beginning of the turn towards closed AI. For defenders, the only way to compete and protect. The key move came with Microsoft, a multi-billion-dollar alliance, Azure computing, and a commercial lane to bring AI to mass products. The lab began publishing fewer sensitive details and releasing tangible applications. GitHub Copilot showed that the economic value was immediate. The balance shifted. OpenAI was still talking about mission, but it was already operating as a player with product, revenue, and market share goals. The open versus closed tension became a permanent issue. This shift had cultural derivatives. More product managers with researchers, quarterly roadmaps, retention metrics, and ARPU coexisting with papers and benchmarks. It also brought legal and reputational dilemmas. Lawsuits by authors and media outlets over data use and training, debates about licensing and fair use, and questions about how much transparency is enough without revealing secrets that enable abuses or unfair competition. The launch of ChatGPT, Innovation versus Security. On November 30th, 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT as a public experiment. There was no great campaign, and it exploded. In days, it reached millions of users. In 2 months, 100 million. Viral captures, concerned teachers, offices redesigning workflows. ChatGPT suddenly demonstrated what generative AI could do: write, translate, summarize, program, accompany. It also showed its shadows: hallucinations with a convincing tone, biases inherited from the internet, and the ease with which creative prompts circumvented barriers. Within OpenAI, success brought shocks. The security teams called for caution. The product team saw a historic opportunity and a duty to iterate quickly. Red teaming was hired, filters were adjusted, GPT 3.5 Turbo and then GPT-4 were launched, with multimodal capabilities and better rejections of dangerous requests. Enterprise controls were added: no data retention modes, activity logs, and per-tenant isolation for corporate customers. Even so, several alignment and safety profile outputs set off external alarms about priorities. The company defended that security and innovation were advancing in parallel. The undeniable: AI ceased to be a promise and became a tool for the masses. Use cases grew across sectors: finance using models to summarize reports and detect anomalies, health to write clinical notes, always with human supervision, education with personalized tutors, marketing with campaign generation, and software development with copilots that accelerate cycles. At the same time, misuses appeared: more credible phishing, fraud attempts with cloned voices, and synthetic disinformation. The same engine that boosts productivity can also amplify damage if left ungoverned. Crisis at the top: the departure and return of Sam Altman. On November 17, 2023, OpenAI's board fired Sam Altman, citing a lack of candor in his communications. The impact was seismic. Greg Brockman resigned in solidarity. More than 700 employees threatened to leave if Sam didn't return. Microsoft offered shelter to Altman and those who wanted to follow him. The company was hours away from imploding. After days of vertigo, the solution arrived. Altman returned as CEO, and the board was reconfigured with figures of greater operational weight. Ilya Sutskever publicly apologized for his role in the crisis. OpenAI still stood, but the crack revealed something profound. 4 people on a board with control over AI's most influential player can nearly stop the global train in one weekend. The question was no longer technical, but governance. Who oversees those who build global cognitive infrastructures? What counterweights do these technologies require? The episode left traces. It accelerated discussions about board independence, conflicts of interest, and the need for internal disclosure protocols to avoid surprises at the top. It also strengthened the bond with Microsoft, a key partner and investor, sending a message to the market. Large models are no longer an academic endeavor. They are strategic infrastructure. Present and future, dilemmas, competition, and what's next. Since 2023, the race has become fierce. Google unified Brain and DeepMind and pushes Gemini. Meta capitalizes on a partial opening strategy with Llama. Anthropic grew up with a security-first narrative. In Asia, China is accelerating with giants such as Baidu and Alibaba, and with aggressive startups. Accusations of knowledge appropriation through scraping of model outputs arise, and legal battles over copyrights in both training and generation. The pace is frenetic. When everyone is running, prudence suffers. OpenAI didn't stay in the initial glory. With GPT-4, it expanded capabilities to imaging and more complex reasoning. It integrated voice and multimodality into ChatGPT, launched enterprise versions with privacy controls, and pushed deep integrations with the Microsoft ecosystem. At the same time, he opted for agents, systems that not only converse but also act, call tools, navigate documents, execute flows, and automate tasks. The vision: to go from "I answer you" to "I solve it." Revenue grew with the API and premium offerings, and the developer base exploded with simpler SDKs and environments. But the greater the influence, the greater the scrutiny. Every mistake generates headlines. Every product decision is also public policy. Governments and regulators stepped up the conversation. The European AI Act with a focus on risk levels, US guidelines on security, traceability, and pre-deployment testing, and international forums that seek common minimums in external assessments and incident reporting. The dilemmas are tangible. Truth and trust. The boundaries between the real and the synthetic are blurred. Viral deepfakes, convincing but fake texts, cloned voices for scams. Some propose cryptographic watermarks and content provenance standards. Others warn that the cat-and-mouse race will be constant. The public needs media literacy for an era where the fake looks authentic. Work and creativity. AI automates routine cognitive tasks and remixes styles. It increases productivity, yes, but it displaces functions and devalues certain skills. Companies reconfigure teams, less repetitive work, more system orchestration. Creative professions adapt with human-in-the-loop flows, contracts that recognize the use of sensing styles and techniques to protect catalogs. The debate over remuneration when a model emulates a style without copying verbatim is just beginning. Privacy and security. OpenAI tightened policies so that it does not train by default with user data, and even so, the risks of leaks, unwanted inferences, or abuse are still present. Small failures remind us that when integrating AI into day-to-day life, the guarantees must be robust, auditable, and configurable by the customer. Enterprises are asking for dedicated instances, zero retention, and granular access controls. Identity. In an ocean of bots with believable voices, how do you prove you're human? Experiments like WorldCoin explore verifiable digital identities. Controversial, yes, but revealing of the problem. We need reliable infrastructure for the synthetic era. At the same time, corporate rules for responsible use are emerging, tagging generated content, verifying sources, and auditing prompts and outputs in sensitive processes. Technically, the next frontier is not just bigger, but better reasoning, long-term memory, native tools, browsers, calculators, IDEs, and collaboration between specialized models. We'll see assistants acting. They book, buy, analyze, program, and operate software for you. In education, personalized tutors 24/7 with adaptive curricula. In health, clinical co-pilots for triage and note writing, with strict protocols and defined responsibility. In finance, co-pilots that reconcile transactions, detect anomalies, and explain portfolio risks in plain language. The conversation about universal basic income resurfaces if productivity rises and employment moves more than the market absorbs. Some cities experiment with conditional transfers, companies pilot mass upskilling, and universities redesign careers for a world where knowing how to coordinate AI is worth as much as knowing how to program. The cultural world reconciles with human-machine co-creation, new genres, new formats, or clashes with it in court. Faced with this, there are two competing visions in your head. The hopeful one, AI that frees up time, democratizes knowledge, and accelerates science and prosperity. The dark one, dependence, loss of skills, concentration of power, and manipulation of masses with algorithmic precision. The future will probably mix both. The crucial thing is to build guardrails, robust governance, independent audits, meaningful transparency, and real social participation. Final thoughts. The OpenAI saga is the mirror of the AI revolution, ideals that come up against the reality of power. We saw a laboratory born with humanistic ambition, professionalize, ignite the largest cycle of recent technological adoption, and almost disintegrate due to a clash of trust. We saw how open and closed are not abstract dogmas but daily decisions with costs and benefits. And we saw an organization that in leading must accept a higher standard of accountability. Uncomfortable questions are inevitable. Can we trust a handful of leaders to handle technologies with systemic externalities? Should so much capacity be concentrated in private entities, even if they were born with noble intentions? The answer doesn't depend on OpenAI alone. It depends on informed regulators, global standards, technical audits, vigilant press, and users who understand what they have at hand. It also demands humility from creators, recognizing limits, communicating risks, and accepting controls. For companies and professionals who watch us, the practical advice is clear. Adopt AI judiciously. It defines internal policies for responsible use, invests in data governance, requires contracts with privacy and security guarantees, trains teams in effective prompting and information verification, and measures ROI without losing sight of operational risks. For creators and media, tag, document processes, and protect catalogs. Explore new partnerships and licenses that recognize shared value. For governments, listen to technicians and civil society. Experiment with regulatory sandboxes, and coordinate standards with other countries so that the rule is not to go to the most lax jurisdiction. We want to hear from you. What worries you the most? Synthetic disinformation? The impact on your employment? Privacy? Or are you excited about the promise of productivity and accelerated science? Leave it in the comments. This conversation has to be everyone's. We close with a simple and forceful idea. AI is not just technology, it is power. And power, unsupervised, rarely goes where we expect. OpenAI's story is just beginning. The future is not something that happens to us, it is something we build. Let's use this tool judiciously, question it forcefully, and together, push so that this power truly earns our trust.